So I haven't made a video for a few days. Actually, it's been a few weeks, and I'll tell you why. But first of all, I want to show you a project I've been working on. And I think as far as knife making goes, it's probably one of the most simple projects you could possibly undertake. And the reason I want to show you this, it's not complete yet, but I want to show you at a stage where you can see how it starts and how you can finish it. Anyone that's been wanting to make a knife but has just never taken the plunge, you'll never find an easier way to do it than this. So I'll just get right to it here and show you. This is what I'm talking about. This is an ulu style knife. Ulu is the Inuit term for this kind of knife. I've made a few modifications to the original design here with the materials I've used. But basically this blade shape is commonly used among all of the natives on the west coast, the northwest coast from California all the way up to Alaska. This kind of knife is very efficient at processing fish, salmon, and also working with large game, seals, moose. They use it for all of that. It's good for fleshing hides, good for scoring the fish for drying. So I thought I wanted to make one of these as well for use in some projects that I'm going to take on over the summer here. At the point that it's at right now is that I've got the blade basically roughed out and the initial grind is done. And the moose, this is moose antler. I cut the handle here and I've got it ready to set the blade in. And I'm not going to use traditional methods, either hafting it on there or using pine pitch. I'm going to use epoxy and pins of some sort. But what makes this so easy to work with is, for one, the ideal piece of metal here that you use is a saw blade. This is just a regular circular saw blade, and for the purpose that I'm going to use it for, it doesn't need to be hardened beyond what it is. It's actually pretty soft right now. On the Rockwell scale, a saw blade will sit somewhere in the neighborhood of 34 or 35 Rockwell hardness, which is pretty soft. But if we're working with just flesh, it's plenty good enough to take an edge. And then if you wanted to resharpen it on a stone, it won't be super difficult. I'm sure you all know this, but a conventional knife that you buy from the store that's been hardened properly will be, say, 55 to maybe 60 Rockwell hardness. So this might be more along the lines of a utility machete type of hardness, or something that's designed to be used and resharpened out in the bush. So you can heat this up and quench it and bring its hardness up, but for my intended uses, the traditional uses here, I'm not going to do that. So that's one thing that makes this super easy. The shape is pretty much almost already ready for you. You hardly need any tools to make this. I used an angle grinder with a cutoff blade and knocked the teeth off. Didn't even get hot enough to change that what hardness it does have. And then after that, I just used a hand file and a clamp, clamped it to a table, and started working on the edge here. It's not finished edge yet, but I'm going to clean up the rust and everything first. But so far I've used an angle grinder and a clamp and a file, and that's it. And another thing that makes this project super simple and a good place to start building your skills is that when you set it into whatever material you decide to use for a handle, if you already have that angle grinder and you're using it, and you just take a cutoff blade. See, here on the saw blade that I used, I actually marked the cutoff blade onto this curve so that I knew what kind of curve the cutoff blade would make when I sunk it into this handle. And then that's all I did. I just took that cutoff blade, ground into the handle, and now the two seat together in a pretty good match. Just for kind of aesthetics, I left this little flare here on the antler and kind of ground my blade to match that. It's asymmetrical. It's not, a lot of ulus that you'll see out there will be the same angle off both sides. I made mine asymmetrical because I wanted to kind of have more of a utility point up here. Just make it a little more versatile, not strictly the traditional style. So that's it. The next step for this is I'm going to epoxy the blade into the handle. I'm going to drill it and pin it with a couple of pins, and pinning is an easy process too. If you've got a regular drill, you can buy a grinding stone to cut off the end of the pins. You probably don't even have to pin this because this is a light duty use tool, but I'm going to. It can be hard to drill through saw blades, and once you gain some more skill and knowledge, you can learn about annealing this, softening the handle part of the metal, and you can learn how to drill that out too. It's not very difficult to do. So that's the project, and this piece here I left intact, this tine. I figured that could be useful as something for flint knapping if I decide I want to do that, or that could even be used as a digging tool, or since this will be pinned and fairly strong, I could probably use this for light duty chopping, maybe taking bark off of branches or logs or whatever I need to do. But so that's it. That's my simple project for you. You might want to try out. And I'm not going to show this one finished in this video, but you'll see it down the road. I'm just looking for the right piece of material to use to make kind of a protective sheath for this as well. So, and now, why I haven't made videos in a little while. I hate stories with a moral, of course, but when I was working with my angle grinder on this one, I had cut everything out. Of course, I was wearing my safety glasses, but then I wanted to make one more modification to the shape of this blade. Put this into my vise and just made a quick zing with the angle grinder on it, and sure enough, got a piece of metal in my eye. It wasn't too bad the first day, but the next day after that, I couldn't open my eye. Any light at all, sunlight, was unbearable. The pain was shooting through my eye. So basically I couldn't go out of the house that day, and then the next day it was no better. I thought maybe there was still a chunk in there. I dug around and pulled a piece of metal out of there, and then I figured it was just scratched and irritated. I waited another day or two, and then it just wasn't going away. I felt like I had sand in my eyeball and just shooting pains. So went to the doctor, and he found another piece of metal that had burned itself and embedded itself into my eyeball. So he had to get in there with a needle, which isn't a lot of fun, freeze my eye, and then you get to watch him dig around with a needle into your eyeball. And he eventually picked it out, and then I had to wear an eye patch for 2 days, and missed some of the best weather that we've had so far this year. But fortunately my vision's okay, and I'm just about back to 100% here now. So yeah, I was kind of out of commission there for almost a whole week with that ordeal. But I'm back in action now, and hopefully you can learn from my mistakes and wear your safety glasses. Alright, take care. See you around.